Why is the American military shooting something out of the sky over Canada?
Because it's part of NORAD. There is the NORAD is part of like it's a what you call a coalition, a consortium,
a pact of nations.
A pact,
okay.
Exactly. And so that's why we were able to do that. Again, we didn't do it on our own. We did it clearly in step with Canada.
This is my first video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Monday morning. Let's talk about some news. So here in Cyprus, we have a new president. We elected yesterday the independent candidate, former foreign minister of Cyprus, Nikos Christoforou. He is our new president. I talked about him last week when we had the first round of voting, and I expected him to win. Many of the polls in the run-up to the final round of voting, they had him ahead as well, and sure enough, he came out on top. He is our new president here in Cyprus. Fairly young guy, 49 years old. A lot of foreign policy experience, government experience as a spokesman as well, foreign minister. And I think people are pretty upbeat. At least that's the sense that I'm getting. The elections went smooth, no real hiccups. And we await to see the actions of our new president here in Cyprus. But I think there's an air of optimism in general in this country. So that is the news coming out of Cyprus. The interesting fact about Christoforou was that the new president was that he ran as an independent candidate. Yes, he was supported by various parties, but he was an independent, and he won, which I think is very, very interesting and encouraging to have independent candidates become president of countries. That's a good sign. So that is what happened here. What is going on in the United States is, well, we got lots of balloons flying around. Actually, yesterday, we didn't have a balloon that was shot down over Lake Huron. What we had is, according to the Wall Street Journal, we had an octagon-shaped object. An unidentified octagon object was shot down in the United States over Lake Huron. And I believe the Wall Street Journal reported that it was flying at an altitude of 20,000 feet and posed some sort of risk to U.S. airspace or national security. And so Greece's favorite son, Joe Bidenopoulos, gave the orders to shoot it down, and they shot it down. And in China, there was also some balloon activity, some UFO activity. I keep on saying balloon, but that's not right. What we're dealing with here are unidentified flying objects. Some are balloons, some are the size of cars or trucks, and some are octagon-shaped. But according to the Global Times, there was an unidentified flying object in the Rizhao region. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. In China, and I think the Chinese shot it down. So, do we have some sort of U.S.-China balloon war going on? What is going on? This is a distraction, isn't it? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking what we're dealing with here is some sort of distraction, a distraction from stuff that the Biden White House did, some actions that they took, which they want to kind of distract people away from, like, I don't know, say, blowing up a pipeline. Just saying, I don't know. Maybe they want to distract from something like that. A big story like that would need a ridiculous type of distraction. Or maybe they want to distract everybody away from, I don't know, from something that's going to embarrass them in the future, like the collapse of a proxy war government in Eastern Europe. maybe something like that. Maybe they're looking to distract us away from a government that's run by a comedian, clown puppet that's about to disintegrate, and they don't want people to be too focused on that. Who knows? Maybe this is a distraction for something that's about to come. Something terrible or sinister or provocative that's being cooked up, and they want everyone to focus on balloons and UFOs while something is being planned. I have no clue. Interestingly enough, we have a report coming from Russian foreign intelligence, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. And this is what they're saying. This is not me. This is not me. This is the Russian Foreign Intelligence. They're reporting that the United States plans to carry out the transfer of militants to the Russian Federation and the CIS to carry out terrorist attacks against diplomats, civil servants, security officials, and the military. This is pretty shocking. Keep in mind, this is coming from the Russian intelligence service, so always keep that in mind. This is not me saying this. This is not the collective West or any other media or anything like that, or Russian media saying this. This is what they're reporting. I can't confirm this. I don't know if I believe this, but the claims are that the U.S. selected 60 militants for terrorist attacks in Russia and the former Soviet nations. They are being trained at the Al Tarif base in Syria. The U.S. intends to send militants to Russia and other CIS countries to carry out attacks against diplomats and security officials. So this is some pretty serious stuff. These are pretty serious accusations, because that's all we have here are accusations. I haven't seen any other reports or anything like that to corroborate or confirm this. So I don't have much to go on. But, you know, there was a time, like, I think like 4 years ago or 5 years ago? I remember when there was the Russian ambassador in Ankara that was shot. Was he an ambassador? No, he was a Russian diplomat that was shot in Turkey. That was horrifying. And, you know, the part that worries me is that if you buy into Cy Hirsch's report, and I don't see why you wouldn't believe what Cy Hirsch is reporting with Nord Stream, you understand that you would be led to believe that the Biden White House is a bit, you know, is a bit crazy, for lack of a better word. Because to take out a pipeline, critical infrastructure of your ally, Germany. And by the way, I think that it wasn't only Germany that had a stake in Nord Stream. I believe France, Switzerland, and maybe the Netherlands, they all had some sort of investment in Nord Stream. But anyway, you know, if you buy into Cy Hirsch's article on Nord Stream, his revelation on Nord Stream, you worry that this White House will do anything to hurt Russia. Oh, to hurt Germany, but to ultimately hurt Russia. That's why when I read a report like this coming from the Russian military, from the Russian intelligence service, the Foreign Intelligence Service, I say to myself, if there wasn't this Nord Stream thing, I probably wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, whatever, this is Russian disinfo. But after the Nord Stream thing, anything's possible. Absolutely anything's possible. I actually think Peskov even gave a statement addressing this. He said there will be no decrease in Putin's publicity due to information about the U.S. recruiting militants in the Russian Federation. The security of the president is ensured. That's what Peskov said. So, it seems like they're taking this seriously, but they're not going to hide Putin away or anything like that. He's going to continue to make his appearances. Not that this statement is saying that they're going to target Putin, is that they're going to target diplomats and other officials. And Russian diplomats have been killed before. This has happened in the past. And so that's what worries me. That's why I read a report like this and I say to myself, you know, this is nonsense. But after the Nord Stream thing, I just don't dismiss it now. If you believe what Cy Hirsch reported, Germany, they're trying to, Der Spiegel, they're trying to really smear Cy Hirsch. Let me pull up two Der Spiegel articles. And one of them is from 2016, and another one is from 2023. In 2016, the German publication Spiegel said Chicago-born Seymour Hersh will be there, the legendary American investigative journalist who became world famous in 1969 for exposing the massacre by U.S. soldiers in the Vietnamese village of My Lai. In 2004, he was among the journalists who exposed the torture of Iraqis by U.S. personnel at Baghdad's Abu Ghraib prison. So that was 2016. The legendary American investigative journalist who became world famous. That's what they said, Spiegel, in 2016. 2023, this is what Spiegel says. U.S. journalist sees USA behind Nord Stream sabotage. The controversial U.S. journalist Seymour Hersh writes in a poorly documented blog post that the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream pipelines. Russia propaganda is already using the claim for its own purposes. See how propaganda is done? The foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, he actually came out with a statement on Nord Stream, and he said, Cy Hirsch's article on Nord Stream, and he said, U.S. officials are happy to say that the explosions on the Nord Streams are their work, in reference to Seymour Hersh's article. So, Polish President Duda, he gave an interview to Le Figaro the other day, and he was asked a couple of interesting questions. He was asked about whether Ukraine can win. And he said, yes, they can. But unless Ukraine gets very urgent help, they don't have modern military infrastructure, but they do have people. If we do not send military equipment to Ukraine in the coming weeks, Putin may win. He can win, and we don't know where he will stop. Keep in mind that I ran this quote through Google Translate, so it may be a little choppy, but that's what Duda said, basically admitting that Russia is winning, but he believes that if Ukraine gets the urgent military help right away, they can win. That is what Duda is saying. If Ukraine gets the tanks and the fighter jets and the long-range missiles and all the help from the U.S., they can win, right? So then one would imagine that because this is existential for Poland, because Duda also says that if Ukraine doesn't win, we don't know where Russia will stop. Here he's basically saying that once Russia takes Ukraine, they'll come after Poland. So this is obviously existential for Poland. So you would imagine that Poland is going to give everything they've got to Ukraine in order to achieve that victory. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? I mean, they can win. If you give them the fighter jets, they can win. And then you'll stop Russia from invading Poland, right? Pretty simple. But during that same interview with Le Figaro, Duda said, when asked about F-16s to Ukraine, he said, and I quote, "We have such planes, but there are less than 50 of them. In fact, this is our only stock of jet aircraft. It will create a serious problem if we donate even a small part." A more serious problem than having Russia take over all of Ukraine and then move towards Poland? Doesn't make too much sense there. You would think that Poland would be given all of their fighter jets, however many they have, they would be giving them over to Ukraine. Maria Zakharova, she actually replied to Duda's statements in this interview with Le Figaro, and she said this: "The Kiev government and its foreign backers are condemned to defeat," is what she said on her Telegram channel. And she added that the arms deliveries won't help you. They'll only make things worse. Repentance for what they have done is the only way out for the West. Pretty damning words from the foreign ministry spokeswoman. Repentance for what they have done is the only way out for the West. So that was Zakharova's response to Duda's interview in the publication Le Figaro. And before we get to a clown world, let's do one more story. And for this, we go to Italy and Berlusconi, who has floated out a ceasefire plan, a cash for ceasefire deal. This is what the one-time Prime Minister of Italy said on Sunday, speaking after a regional election in Lombardy. Berlusconi, who leads the Forza Italia party, slammed Ukrainian President Elensky, saying, "If I had been the Prime Minister, I would never have gone to talk to him, because we are witnessing the devastation of his country and the slaughter of his soldiers and civilians." The former Italian leader stated that it would have been enough for him to stop attacking the two autonomous republics of Donbass, and this would not have happened, adding that he views this gentleman's behavior very, very negatively. Those were statements from Berlusconi. He then said that Biden should offer Elensky a new Marshall Plan to the tune of several $billions to rebuild the country, but only on condition that Elensky orders a ceasefire tomorrow. Because starting from tomorrow, we will no longer give you dollars and we will no longer give you weapons. Only such a thing could convince this gentleman to reach a ceasefire, Berlusconi said. It's a very interesting statement coming from the Forza Italia leader and the one-time prime minister, who has a very good relationship with Putin. But in this statement, he's basically saying, just flat out saying, that this conflict was all Elensky's doing. It could have been stopped. It would have never happened if Elensky just would have stopped doing what he was doing in the East. That's what Berlusconi is saying here. And he's probably right by saying he's definitely right by saying the only way to get Elensky to come to the negotiating table is if the money dries up, because it's the money that drives the Elensky regime. That's what motivates them, is getting more and more money, whether it's cash or whether it's weapons that can be turned into cash. So Berlusconi is absolutely right. But we know that the Biden White House, they're the ones that are also controlling the Elensky regime. We know that from the statements from the former Israeli prime minister. And and what happened as well in Turkey during those negotiations. We know that when Elensky was finally scared into finally surrendering because he understood that he would not be able to defeat Russia, it was the United States that encouraged Elensky to drop the negotiations and to escalate, because the United States told Elensky that they would be giving him the support that he needs. So, Berlusconi, he's spot on what he says, but it's not so simple as getting Biden to cut Elensky off, because Biden's the one that doesn't want to cut Elensky off. He's the one that's actually propping up Elensky. So that's what Berlusconi said. Interesting comments from the Italian Prime Minister. And let's do a clown world. And this clown world comes from the UK, from the Telegraph. And the Telegraph is reporting that British defense executives are reportedly looking to produce weapons in Ukraine. They're very worried that German and French defense companies are going to get contracts with the Ukraine government first to produce weapons in Ukraine. I think that's the key word, in Ukraine. I don't understand why they believe that the Russian military would actually let them produce weapons in Ukraine, like weapons manufacturing facilities in Ukraine. Russia would just stand by and let that happen. It doesn't make much sense. Anyway, senior British defense industry officials are discussing the possibility of manufacturing weapons and armored vehicles in Ukraine under a local license. The Telegraph reported on Saturday some executives have already visited Kiev to explore options for setting up joint ventures, the newspaper wrote. According to the report, British manufacturers are concerned that their French and German rivals could be the first to seal a deal with Kiev. One executive was quoted as describing the negotiations as a race to put London at the front of the queue. It was also said that such a licensing deal would likely require the approval of the British government. So obviously, if Ukraine had the capability, which it doesn't, but let's just assume it did. Let's assume it had the capability to, at this moment in time, after everything that's happened over the past year, to manufacture weapons in a deal with Britain or France or Germany. You would imagine that the Russians would have no problem destroying those weapons facilities. Heavy weapons at that, tanks and stuff like that, those manufacturing facilities. So then, what is going on here? Why would the Telegraph run a clown world article like this, saying that British defense officials are keen on opening up manufacturing facilities in Ukraine? The only outcome that would result in Ukraine having the capability to manufacture weapons would be if, well, two outcomes. If Russia loses, or if a part of Ukraine is under the protectorate, is under the protection of NATO. And even then, I don't think that would stop Russia from destroying weapon manufacturing facilities. But let's just say that scenario could possibly mean that weapons manufacturers could create some sort of manufacturing capability for weapons in Ukraine, inside Ukraine. Of course, this could just all be about creating the budget and the contracts for manufacturing weapons in Ukraine and signing those contracts with the military manufacturers in France, Germany, and Britain. And then the location could change because of what's going on in Ukraine, and the contract stays. The contracts, the budget, the money remains, but the location is no longer in Ukraine and it's elsewhere. That's probably what's going on. You're probably looking at a mechanism to give more money, to carve out more money to the military-industrial complex under the guise that what they're going to be doing is manufacturing inside of Ukraine. So that's why we should put these contracts in place and bump up our military spending budget. That's my hunch. Anyway, that's the clown world, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin as well. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.